Have you ever wondered why God, being almighty, simply didn't destroy Satan and the fallen angels shortly after the rebellion in heaven? Why allow evil to continue, causing so much pain and destruction? This is a question that plagues many sincere Christians, and the answer is much deeper than it seems. What is behind this divine delay is not neglect. It is justice, love, and a perfect plan that is unfolding before our eyes. Few know, but there is a heavenly and strategic motive for Satan to be active. This is not just a postponed punishment, but an eternal lesson being taught to the whole universe. The fall of Lucifer, described in Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28, triggered a cosmic conflict, and God's victory in this conflict will not only be a matter of strength, but of character. The truth is being revealed. And believe me, she will mess with your faith. In this content, let's dive behind the scenes of the apocalypse, understand why the final judgment has not yet come, and find out how free will, sin, and divine justice are intertwined in this heavenly drama. Let's explore texts such as Revelation 12, Colossians 2, and 2 Peter 3 with depth, but clearly and accessible. And above all, let's reflect on how this story is also our story. So if you want to understand once and for all why God has not yet destroyed Satan, and what it reveals about who God really is watching to the end, enjoy this video and subscribe to the channel. Here you will discover truths that will strengthen your faith and transform your way of seeing the great conflict between good and evil. Let's go. It is a question that echoes in the hearts of many sincere Christians. If God is love, holy and righteous, why does he simply not destroy Satan at once? It seems contradictory to keep the rebellion alive in heaven and introduce sin into the universe. But this doubt is not new. She has gone to the minds of prophets, scholars, and even angels. And look, the answer is as deep as revealing. Satan is not just a symbolic character or a villain in a biblical narrative. He is real, was Lucifer, an angel of light, exalted for his beauty and wisdom, Ezekiel 28. Its fall was not an accident, but the result of a conscious choice to use of free will against the Creator himself. And here's a dilemma: would destroy Satan immediately solve the problem, or only created more doubts in the hard creatures? Think to me if God eliminated him in the act. The universe could think that Lucifer was right. Maybe God was arbitrary, too severe, or even unfair, and that would put the whole base of divine justice. Therefore, God does not act in a hurry. He doesn't just want to overcome a dispute. He wants each being created to understand, from experience, the destructive nature of evil and the beauty of obedience for love. This decision, at first glance, actually reveals how patient and wise God is. Instead of erasing the problem, he is allowing a great conflict to unfold before all, with heavenly and human witnesses. Not because he needs to prove something to himself, but so that no question of doubt remain for his goodness, justice, and love. And that prepares the terrain for everything next. At first glance, God's delay in destroying Satan seems an unjustifiable silence before the suffering of the world. Wars, diseases, tragedies. All this should have been avoided, right? But here is the key point: God's time is not ours. What seems slow is, in fact, part of a carefully elaborated plan. There is a mystery being revealed in the compass of eternity. God does not act impulsively, like a nervous judge hammering the sentence in the heat of emotion. Divine justice is not just about punishment. It is also about restoration. With each generation, he is writing before the universe a living narrative about what's in causes and how it responds with grace and truth. And in this scenario, Satan, even resisting, is being exposed by the very chaos he sows. It is interesting to realize that God is giving time not only for evil to be completely revealed, but for all angels and humans clearly see who is right. Revelation 12 shows that there was a war in heaven, and now it continues in our hearts. Each choice we make is linked to this larger conflict. Therefore, the final judgment has not yet come. It needs to be understood before it is executed. God's plan is so deep that it transforms even waiting into a revelation tool. His patience is a loving answer, not an omission. He is allowing the world to see with his own eyes what happens when the creature rejects the Creator. And so, when the final judgment comes, no one can say, "I didn't know." This mystery, this delay, it is an extended chance to all of us. It all started with a choice. Lucifer, an angel created by God perfectly in glory, decided to rebel, it was not out of ignorance or weakness, but for pride. He wished the throne to control, the worship that belonged only to the Creator, Isaiah 14. And that was the beginning of evil, not because God created him, but because he granted freedom. And where there is freedom, there is also the possibility of rejection. Free will is a valuable but dangerous gift. Without him, we would only be scheduled robots to obey. But God wants true love, not forced obedience. When Lucifer rebelled, he not only broke with the divine order, he questioned God's character. If the Lord had destroyed Satan right there, the other angels could have obeyed only for fear. And fear does not produce genuine fidelity. By allowing Satan to continue existing, God was protecting a much greater principle, moral freedom. This is so deep that we still feel the impacts of this decision. The evil we see in the world, corruption, violence, selfishness, are reflections of this same free will being misused. But look, it is in this freedom that is also the key to redemption, because we can choose to go back to God. God did not create sin, but created beings with the ability to love, and love involves choice. Lucifer chose pride. Adam and Eve chose to suspect. We today choose between living with God or following our own ways. And despite the pain this freedom causes, God still considers us worthy of having it. This says a lot about who he is, and prepares a scenario for the next phase of this great conflict. Many people think that the Bible history revolves around a fight against Satan. But the true center of this conflict is the character of God. When Lucifer rebelled, he not only disobeyed, he threw doubts about who God really is. Is he fair? Is your law good? This was not just a power dispute, it was a direct accusation against the essence of the Creator. The most shocking is that God agreed to be placed in the defendant's bank. Instead of silencing the accuser tightly, he chose to reveal his righteousness patiently. This requires divine courage. The whole universe began to observe closely, does God govern with love or tyranny? Each page in the history of salvation, from Eden to Revelation, is a living proof of its just and merciful character. This is why the great conflict is so much more than a clash between heavenly forces. He is an opportunity for the whole universe to see clearly who God really is. With each action, he shows that he does not act with selfishness, but with purpose. He loves the truth. He values freedom. And above all, he wants him to choose him to come from his heart, not from fear. So when we ask ourselves why evil still exists, the answer is deep. God is allowing time to reveal everything. Not only who is Satan, but who is God. The final judgment will not be a hasty act, but a verdict based on visible evidence. And that completely changes the way we see the pain, weight, and fate of humanity. Just imagine a perfect place, full of light and harmony, and suddenly war in heaven. It sounds like fiction script, but it is in Revelation 12. Lucifer, now Satan, was not content to just mutter. He recruited, lied, and convinced a third of the angels to join his rebellion. It was the beginning of the great cosmic conflict, where evil tried to settle in God's own throne, and God, with regret, allowed separation. This was not a war like the ones we know here on Earth, with tanks and missiles. It was a battle of ideas, of loyalties, of purpose. And even before the rebellion, God did not act with immediacy. He allowed Satan to be expelled, yes, but also allowed him to exist for a while to see the universe where sin leads. It is like letting the seed of evil springs, so that everyone will see the fruit it produces. Throughout history, we see the consequences of the celestial war overflow into Earth's suffering, destruction, distortions of truth. But all this is being registered before the universe. Each act of wickedness is more evidence against Satan and its system. And good, even in the midst of pain, continues to prove that God is righteous, even when chaos seems to dominate. It is difficult to accept that God allows it all, but think to me, if he intervened ahead of time, evil would never have been completely unmasked, and that would leave room for new doubts in the future. By showing clearly what the rebellion causes, God is ensuring that, after the final judgment, sin will never exist again, Psalm 1:9. And that changes everything about how we see the apocalypse and armor of God. It may seem strange to say that, but even Satan, with all its wickedness, is serving a revealing purpose. Not because God takes advantage of his actions, far from it, but because their accusations against the Creator help to further highlight divine justice. Remember when he tried Job? Or when did it appear accusing in Zechariah 3? He always tries to prove that God is unfair, that his law is heavy, and that no one can be true. Satan acts as a cruel prosecutor in a cosmic court, trying to convince that sin is inevitable and that man cannot be saved. But God responds with living evidence. The cross is the largest of all. There Jesus, without sin, took the weight of evil over himself and won. Colossians 2:15 says that on the cross, Christ stripped the principalities and powers, triumphing over them publicly. What a powerful answer to the accuser. Even so, the divine plan is not over yet. The victory of Jesus was spiritual and definitive, but the final judgment is still in the future. And until then, Satan keeps trying to distort the truth, sowing confusion, promoting evil. But every lie only reinforces the truth of a redemption plan. God is even using darkness to highlight his light. It's like a precious jewel on a black cloth. The more contrast, the more shine. And as crazy as it seems, this painful process has opened the eyes of millions. Each fall caused by Satan, every unfair suffering, every existential crisis. All this screams for redemption. And when the judgment finally comes, no one can claim ignorance. The truth was exposed not just about Satan, but about the God who has never given up restoring us. When we look at the world and see so much injustice, it is normal to think, God, why have you not solved it yet? But the truth is that he is solving only at the right pace. 2 Peter 3:9 reveals something powerful. The Lord does not slow your promise, but is patient to you. The delay is no carelessness, it is mercy. God is waiting because there are still lives to reach, hearts to play. If God executed the final judgment now, how many people would be ready? How many of our friends, family, or even we ourselves be truly prepared? His patience is an extended chance, an opportunity for regret before the conviction. It is like that teacher who advances the final test to give extra time to students who have not yet understood the subject. Love and justice walking together. This view changes our perspective on time. God's clock does not follow our pointers. He sees eternity as a whole and acts with an eternal purpose. Meanwhile, he calls us to be part of the process, interceding, preaching, living with integrity. The time God gives us is not just to wait, it is to act. And every action of ours may be the push someone needs to turn to the Lord. God's patience is also a way of revealing the contrast between him and Satan. While the enemy presses, accuses, and despair, God expects, heals, and invites. He does not act on impulse, but on purpose. He wants everyone to have a real chance. And in that time extended, we have the opportunity to wear God's armor, fight the good fight, and help prepare the world for Christ's second coming. There will be a day when all questions will be answered and all knees will bend. Philippians 2:1,011. Not by imposition, but for recognition. God does not want a secret victory, hidden behind the scenes of the universe. Divine justice will be public, clear, and unquestionable. Everyone will see that the Lord has always been fair, even when he allowed pain and silence. The final judgment will not be a moment of revenge, but of revelation. Each person, every angel, each being created will understand the choices made, both their own and those of God. Nothing will be covered, and the destruction of evil will be definitive. As says Psalm 1:9, evil will not rise twice. There will be no more space for sin. The cycle of pain, betrayal, and rebellion will be closed forever. Think about it, there will be no more doubts, theories, or accusations. God's righteousness will be like the sun, at noon impossible to deny. And at that moment, the faithfulness of those who persevered will be rewarded, not because they deserved it, but because they chose to trust even when they didn't understand. This confidence will be publicly justified before the whole universe. And that honors not only the saved, but the character of God. So even if now a lot seems confusing, know that there's a reckoning coming. One day each tear will be explained, every injustice will be judged, and the good will triumph. But God doesn't just want to destroy evil, he wants to restore us. Divine justice is not cold, it is redeeming. And the final judgment is only the beginning of an eternity where sin will never exist again. Most people see the destruction of Satan as a simple act of punishment, but in fact, It is part of something much bigger, the restoration of the universe. God is not only interested in eliminating evil, he wants to restore everything to its original beauty. The earth, the heavens, the relationships, and even our hearts will be renewed. And for that, evil needs to be permanently removed. Even though Satan hates the truth, he eventually served as a contrast to reveal the goodness of God. His rebellion has opened what happens when free will is used against love. Every lie has revealed a new layer of divine truth. This does not diminish your guilt, on the contrary, but it shows how God transforms even witness chaos. The cross and judgment are redeeming answers, not just condemnatory. The final destruction of Satan will be fair, clear, and necessary. God is not rejoiced by the death of the wicked, Ezekiel 33:11, but will not allow sin to continue forever. Evil will not only be overcome, will be eliminated. And in this process, God will be cleaning the universe from everything that hurts, separates, and destroys. Justice will be the fertile soil where eternal peace will flourish. When we look at all this, we understand that God's plan has always been more than justice, it was redemption. Restoration involves restoring his image in us. And every choice we make today is linked to this purpose. When we choose good, truth, faithfulness, we are cooperating with the divine plan. We are, in fact, saying, Lord, I restore me what's in has tried to destroy. We have come here understanding that the apparent delay of God to destroy Satan has a deep purpose. Each point addressed reveals more of your love, justice, and patience. From free will to the great rebellion, from cosmic conflict to the promise of restoration, everything points to a God who acts with eternal wisdom. Nothing is out of control. He sees the end from the beginning and leads everything with purpose and mercy. Now, what do we do with this knowledge? This is the most important question. Knowing that evil has a date of validity invites us to live with more urgency and faith. This is not time to live as if everything was normal. It is time to seek God with sincerity, to wear spiritual armor, Ephesians 6, and stay firm, even when everything looks dark. The apocalypse is not a tragic end, it is a new glorious beginning. You may be facing pain, confusion, losses. Perhaps you are wondering if it is worth keeping trusting God when the world seems so unfair. But remember, the final judgment will come, and with it, the total restoration. Until then, we are called to persevere, knowing that our fidelity is not in vain. Nothing escapes in the eyes of God. No tear, no prayer, no gesture of faith goes unnoticed. So I ask you, are you ready to fully trust this divine plan, even without understanding all the details? Are you willing to give your life to the Creator and live as someone who believes in redemption and the second coming? May this message inspire you to take this step today. And if she made sense to you, share it with someone. It may be the seed that God will use to save another life.